Now I'm going to get you started on transits. So what makes the difference between a professional astrologer from a hobbyist astrologer is the transits, really. Because when you read a chart, you're going to find people who have had their charts read many, many times, and they're looking for an astrologer who can explain why this is happening now, and they'll say something like, am I in alignment, or what is going on in my life right now? So they'll watch one of my videos and then they'll say, oh my gosh, I am having issues with my partner. And then when I read their chart, they can get a printout from virtually thousands of sites that say, okay, you have a Sagittarius ascendant and so forth. But what your job is to read the transits correctly so that they know why something is happening to their love life. Here's Pluto going over Venus this year. And you also want to be able to ask them where their partner's sun is. So the husband's sun and where that is, and we know that Chiron is going over his sun, and that Chiron has just entered this woman's house of sexuality. So the first thing that she said to me was, some problems with my love life. In the last 6 months, I haven't been approached sexually by my partner. And sure enough, that is exactly when Chiron entered Aries, hit her partner's sun, so that he's feeling incredibly wounded, but also Chiron entered her 5th house of sexuality. We can also see that Pluto came all the way to 21 and some minutes. It may have even reached 22. I'll have to check the ephemeris, and now it's retrograding back to 1933. But that Pluto is going to be going over her Venus this whole year. And what you want to do is reassure people that they're not out of alignment, everything's perfect, this is expected with their partner. He's feeling the core wounds of humanity. You're feeling like your love life is being dragged into the underworld and possibly rebirthed and transformed. So just given that, I can say to this woman, really, in 2 minutes and 42 seconds, just like I just said to you, hold on, everything's going to be okay. And in fact, because Pluto's going over your Venus, this is the year for you to transform everything about the structures that you're aware of within love, Venus, and shapeshift, Chariklo, to best serve love. So I immediately tuned her into a gatekeeper in Wells, Maine, who has a Love Light Center. Her name is Cheryl, and she works with Mother Mary. She and her partner have been going there. I also tuned her into Sandra Rollis to do a womb blessing session, because I could see in her chart with her ascendant and then immediately Saturn that some very profound difficulties happened for her between the age of 0 and 10 years old. And Saturn, as you can see, is sextiling her Chiron, and Mars is also squaring her Chiron. So I could see in her early childhood, and in fact that was the case, this person had very serious early childhood trauma. And then when I asked her father's sun sign, which also you want to be able to match this up, is right here conjunct her natal Mars, squaring her Chiron. So the issue was there for sure, and she needed to do some womb blessing and ancestral healing for her family line, also for her siblings, because that same kind of chirotic core wound, which you all know what that is, also occurred to her siblings from the father. So do you see I'm just at 4 minutes and 38 seconds, and how quickly I have transformed this woman's perception that everything is fine, that some big changes are happening. Mars is going to go over her natal Chiron by October, and I have to have my ephemeris with me and say, okay, yeah, we're at August 1st today. This is the position of everything. Mars is going to go direct, and it's going to come, here's Mars again. Mars is going to come over her natal Chiron at 1302, okay, on this day, the 15th of October. So you see that? You want to prepare people for the big transit that's going to happen. So what is she doing? She signed up for the Shakti Fest. She's going to go out and do the womb blessing, the ancestral healing, the sexual de-armoring with Sandra Rollis at the Shakti Fest that I'm going to in Sedona. And she's going to prepare herself for when this Mars goes over her Chiron. We can also see that Saturn is going through this house, and we know that Saturn is also going to make it through this house. So Saturn is going to go direct in September, and it's going to start traveling through that second house. Will it hit her Venus? So then we have to look, will it come all the way to her Venus? Well, it looks like it won't get to her Venus until actually March of next year. So then she'll have Saturn sitting right on her Venus within a 3-degree orb by March. And she'll start to feel that Saturn discipline, the incredible responsibility, perhaps perseverance around her love life by March of this year. And then Saturn will actually retrograde again. But what is the good news? While we were speaking, Jupiter was actually going over her natal Mars. Now, today I've written down that Jupiter's at 14 degrees, but while we were actually speaking, it was going over her father's sun and her natal Mars of the original injury, such that the blessing, the destiny, okay, also because the North Node is conjunct her Mars, from that wound that would bring her into her destiny was also really powerful, because now she's considering a whole new, I mean, she's in her 60s and she's been a nurse practitioner who particularly works with therapy, with psychotherapy, but now she's going to expand this to potentially sound healing, biofield tuning, womb blessings, ancestral healing. She's going to work with Sandra immediately. And then what will happen? Sagittarius will enter her first house by November 9th of 2018. And then Jupiter will be providing her incredible blessings when it enters Sagittarius, because it will be in its own house. Jupiter will be in her first house of self, healing all the wounds of her childhood, making her feel like a huge, graceful expansion of Jupiterian good luck will come to her. And so when she first got on the phone with me, she was really like, gosh, do I have to end this marriage? He's not approaching me sexually. Again, I immediately was able to say, don't worry, Chiron has just entered this house of sexuality for you. It's going to travel through this house for about 7 years. This is when you're going to be able to come into your Vesta priestess, breaking frequency loops, come into the incredible creative intelligence of Athena. And then what you also want to do is notice that when this Pluto is acting on her Venus, it's also activating her entire grand square. So it's going to be making an opposition to her vertex, her fated doorway. It's going to be squaring her natal Jupiter of who she is in her community. It's also going to be squaring her Athena and Sedna, particularly her Athena of her incredible creative intelligence will come forth from this wonderful Pluto transit. So we also want to know how the planets are making aspects within the chart. So we know when Mars comes over her Chiron, Mars will square her natal Mars, because we can see that. So make sure that you're aware of the transits, and I'll work with Lindsay more on that this week to make sure that you know how to do the transits. This is an introduction for you, and you all really want to be able to do the transits very quickly before you start reading charts professionally.